Well, hello everyone. Glad you could join us tonight. We got another special guest, same special guest as we had last night, Andrew, or last week webinar is Andrew Huberman, and he has a great podcast on light, and he has a Dr. Jeffries on, and I think there is some really, really cool information that comes from that with Dr. Jeffries. So, what we're going to do is we're going to just start off, just mention that we have the Palm Ultimate. That's the unit that has the 660 and 810. You can kind of see the purplish glow there and the red light going right through my hand there, as you can see. Anyways, that this light here is a giveaway at the end of the month. So come January, first part of January, somebody will be winner of the Palm Ultimate, a $1,300 device. And that device, if every time you watch our webinars, you get a chance, you get a ballot put in. So if you watch our podcast four times over the course of a month, every week you get four ballots put in. And every month we get the great honor to be able to send out a palm light to somebody that has been watching. And what's been really cool is the number of people that end up getting one of these palms really need one. And I don't know how that works, but we just do a random draw, and somebody ends up with it. So, and I'm so glad to hear of the stories that we've heard of people getting one of these lights through the draw, and whether they've been in tough straits with pain or tight financial situation, and they've ended up getting one of our lights. So, anyways, it's been really cool that way. And we're going to do this video, and then we'll get right into the program.
15 years back, I realized that light could make a huge difference on the body. I ended up designing this very powerful light using LED technology. With this amount of very high power density, it can reach through the tissues and travel right to the joints. But the key is that the power density and the area is extremely important to deliver that light into that. The mitochondria receives that light and converts that energy into the cell. So it's like giving the cell super high octane fuel, and they run like a jet, and they're able to do all the things for repair in that. What are the products we have? Well, we have a small device, which is actually large when it comes to light therapy. You have a fairly large area of light and a high power density that can be used for different parts of the body, like your fingers, shoulder, back, neck, knees, ankle, anywhere on the body. And then we have what's called the mini canopy, which is about a foot square in size. And then we have our full-size canopy, which is basically 6 of the mini canopies. And then we have another device, which is the helmet, and that device can help for mental issues, for brain injuries, for concussions, for PTSD, TBI, all of those kinds of things. And there's new research out there that shows it could be helpful for not only strokes, but dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's, and just different brain issues. Our plans are to move this technology into every area of the world where there's pain and inflammation, which is basically everywhere, and to expand that so people understand all the applications where this technology can be used to help them in their health in the body as a wellness device. People are looking for how they can treat themselves without drugs.
Okay, so we'll get into it in just a moment here with our Dr. Huberman, but just wanted to show you a little more science since we got into it last time. So what I've got here today is another piece of equipment. This box here is called from StellarNet, is a box that has a special prism in it, and it measures very, very accurately the amount of power coming in through an optical fiber. There's a little optical fiber port in the end of this thing, and it picks up the light that's coming through this probe. So I don't know if I can do this. We're going to try something because it's kind of neat if I can demonstrate it. But I'm going to just put this up to the camera. And, well, it's probably easier I do it this way. So this is the fiber optic cable right now. And as you can see, or maybe can't, I'll try and make it so you can see it. There you go. Okay, do you see the light coming in the end of the fiber? And if I block it out, I'll try and do it this way. There we go. Okay, so I'm blocking it out, and there you see the light coming out of the end of this, right there, that right in the middle of the circle, and it's gone. So what I'm doing is I'm measuring light through this fiber optic from this box here, or I should say to this box, and it all comes into a very, very special optical ball, which when I put this in the inside here, like this, it's actually picking up only light that's coming in through this hole. Okay, so the cool thing about that gives us a chance to look at how much energy is coming in here. So if I put this up to the light here, I'll see a certain spectrum. If I put a different kind of bulb in here, it will show me something different. And I'll just show you, I'm hopeful that I'll find some goodies here, which I do have. That's one. And I'm going to see if I got one other thing in the bottom here. It doesn't look like I have it. Okay. All right. Fair enough. Maybe I have. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen right now, so you guys can see. Let's see. I think. All right. It's working. It's working. I'm very happy about that. All right. So right now, this unit is extremely sensitive, and if I put my hand above it, I got to just calibrate it once, which I'll do. And now what's happening is you see all the way across the different wavelengths. As you see on the left-hand side of the screen, 300 nanometer. So 297 nanometer, it doesn't show right now, is the wavelength that creates your vitamin D in that you need for your body. So that's the wavelength there. Now, wherever there's a spike, there's some energy. Now, in this case, we are so sensitive down in the noise floor that we're just picking up random noise, okay? But what I can show you is now I'm going to just put my box here, my ball, up to this light that's shining on me. Now this happens to be an LED panel, and I'll zoom up here, and I'll tell you what. I'm just gonna give me 1 second. It's a little easier to follow. Okay, so what you're going to see now is you're actually seeing. I'm just going to turn this. So what I've got is this globe here. And right now it's facing the light on the ceiling here. What we're seeing here is you can see my cursor move around. Okay, and I'm just going to move this up, make it a little easier to see. So you're seeing from the light on the ceiling, they talk about the blue, that LEDs are very bad when it comes to giving off a very, very high amount of blue. So what you're seeing is a very high amount of blue, followed by very low in this area here, 475 nanometer. And then as we get up to 535 is green, so around there. And then we go up to let's say yellow is 590, about there. And then you have, so this thing has a peak in the yellow, but your eyes are being deceived somewhat because of the way this thing looks. And you see by the time you got 635 nanometer, is the red right here. That part is how much red is in the wavelength. And then beyond that, you got next to nothing. It falls off very, very quickly when you go beyond 700 nanometer. Now, if I take my my Genesis light, it's going to be a very broad. This is more like the sun. So if I show this, so this is a broad spectrum of light right now that's coming in. And what you're seeing is that down here, this is my special device that I created. I actually reduced the anything that was lower than yellow. Remember, I said yellow is 590. I tried to cut that out of the band. Normally, from an incandescent bulb like this, what you would see is this slowly drops down till you get down to this point here, like down to this point here. We actually got some light in coming in here from that LED lamp that's up there. But this whole section is chopped out with a special filter. But what you're going to see is this is the way the sun would somewhat look as far as an increasing, and then would level out, just shifted more to the left a little more. But you can see on the far right hand screen, I have 950 nanometer over there. Okay. So the wavelengths are coming in, as I showed there, from, I'll do it one more time, from about the 600 nanometer all the way to 950. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you what is actually coming through my hand. Okay. So if I put this over my, just try and do this a little differently here. Okay, so what you're seeing now is the light that's actually going through my hand into that ball from my source. And what you can see is that wavelengths from 650 nanometer all the way through to 950 is easily coming through, or is coming through. Now, it could be a lot smoother if I adjusted some things. It'd look a lot easier to see, but you can generally see the curve of the light that is coming through that whole range. And again, look how much different an LED source is. Now, if I take my palm light, okay, the palm light will give me, this is what the palm light looks like. See, it's one wavelength, in this case, around 660 nanometer. And that is a good wavelength. So just above 650 is 660 nanometer. That's the bright red right now that you see coming through here. So if I put that through my hand, it's going to look the same thing as you see here now. That's going through my hand from the light source itself. Okay, there you go. There's the ball, and I put my hand over top of it. There you go. You can see the light that's coming through from my hand between 650 and 900. And if I take, now I got my hand on top of there yet, and if I take my light here and I put it over, see how much more light, I'm not even up to it yet, how much more light is going through, because all my light is concentrated at the 660 nanometer wavelength. And in the video, he says about 670, that 670 is the starting point. Well, really, you can see that well below 650 is still coming through. It would be if I had the right light source here to show you. But it all comes back to how much energy do you have to start with. And so the fact that our unit is 660 nanometer has really no bearing on the fact that in the video they talk about 670 nanometers where things start. No. We have also then so I go up here. See how far away I am right now with the red? And it's telling me how much is coming through. You can see the picture. Now I'm going to go to 810. Look at how much more energy is coming through. Now, what you'd have to do is factor in how much energy is in the whole band. But there's a lot of energy coming through at the 810 nanometer from this device. And then the 1050 would be on the very, very right-hand side of the scale. So I just, as he gets into it, I just thought I'd show that. Now I'm going to just move out of this for a second. I'm still going to share my screen here or something. So I'm going to stop this share and we'll go over to here. Okay, so what you're seeing on this screen there is 635 nanometer, which is the right wavelength for photodynamic therapy. That's the type of thing that you can use for with a special drug that helps for killing off bad C. Everybody knows what bad C is all about. So I can't say the word CANCER. Anyways, that gives you an idea there. Now I'm going to do another one. Okay, this is a cheap white LED. So the white, it looks in your eyes like like there's white, but it's actually a big peak around 600 nanometer, and then another big peak, as you can see, around 450. So it's not very balanced. What a person can do is here's an incandescent bulb, what they talk about. And can you see how even the light is now, all the way from 500 nanometer all the way to 1,000 nanometer? And it would keep going. If you could see it, it just keep going over and over and over until it goes farther than 1350. But at 1350, that's the wavelength where all of a sudden all the energy gets absorbed by the water and there's no more energy coming through. So this is a picture of an incandescent light bulb, okay? And this is the incandescent bulb through my hand. And you can see here in this example that wavelengths between 660 and all the way through to 950 are coming through quite well. And then there's a little dip in here because the water absorption at 960, and then it goes back up again, but I can't show that right now for you. So there would be a beyond this 950, like right up here at this point, 1,000, there's again, it climbs up much more, but it's because of the machine is not made to look at wavelengths 1,000 nanometer above. I can't show you the 1050 nanometer, how much higher the 1050 would be coming through at that point. So we have the wavelengths of 660 nanometer, 810, and 1050. So that, now I'll just show you one other thing, because he talks about if only there was a bulb that would be better for LEDs. And this is something that you get a lot closer to. Look at how much more energy is between 700 and 750 nanometer. There's a lot more energy in here, as well as from 650 to 700. That's because this bulb is what they call a high CRI bulb. It's a color rendering index. And yet you still see a little bit of that 450 there. What I would say is the best lighting for at night, if you want some light from an LED, you could use it, but if you wanted to really improve it, it would be to use the LED bulb for yourself and have not only an LED bulb screwed in, but also an incandescent bulb, which would bring you right out and flatten it right out, the curve. Like, so you'd have a lot more energy in this range from the bulb, and it doesn't give you as much light. So the combination of a bulb, high CRI bulb, or even a regular LED. Oh, no, I wouldn't say so much. A good quality LED bulb that's 2,500 kelvins is probably a good thing. So I'll just show you one other thing. Here is another picture of all the energy on the ultimate and how much energy is coming through on that wavelength. So I'm going to just stop share now. We're going to start with the video now.
I have a lot of questions about these studies, so I'm going to try and be as precise about them. I know it's on people's minds. If people are going to get in front of a long wavelength light emitting device, do you think it's critical that it be 670 nanometers, or could it be 650 out to 800? How narrow band does the light actually have to be in terms of wave?
Okay, so this is again where he talks about the 670 nanometer, and we've got that well covered. The only reason you would definitely want to go a little longer than 670 is because of penetration. And that's why we have the 810 nanometer, as you saw in those slides, or in the presentation I just did. how much more energy travels through. So even at 660, we are much, much more powerful than anything they're talking about. So a little bit of loss going below 670 to 660 is nothing. So just to clarify that.
Pretty much anything works to a rather similar extent at 670 going upwards. When you go below 670 towards 650, the effects tend to be somewhat reduced.
If this is happening very quickly, you said an hour later, the vision is better, thresholds have changed, and it lasts 5 days. Do you think we can get this same effect from sunlight, given that sunlight contains these long wavelengths of light? Or is it that the sunlight isn't of sufficient energy for most people? I mean, with this, what you call torch, I call flashlight, light source, you know, the way you described it and showed it with your hand.
Or the palm, okay? Not a torch, not a flashlight, but the palm.
For those listening, is you're fairly close to the eye, maybe, you know, eyelids closed or maybe open if people can tolerate that, and you're shining that light in their eyes for a couple of minutes. How different is it than stepping outside on a really bright day, closing my eyes if I look in the direction of the sun because that's pleasant, or just walking in the sunlight and getting long wavelength exposure?
Well, I'm a big fan.
Okay, so what I was, although he says you can have your eyelids open or eyes open, in this case, when you're using our device, I recommend highly 1 minute of the red, 1 minute of the near infrared, but having your eyelid closed, because that causes a very, very uniform amount of light. It reduces it a certain amount because of going through the eyelid. It's probably in a factor about 10 times. It reduces the energy from the thing, but that's still very plenty to work with this, and use the 1 minute of the red and 1 minute near infrared with the eyelids closed.
And of natural sunlight, because life's evolved for billions of years under sunlight. Right? It's only recently changed. I don't know that cutoff point, but there's an enormous difference between the light produced.
Okay, one more thing. Sorry, I won't keep cutting it up, but that's one other thing. If you haven't picked up from my last review of the podcast, I believe that we've been created as human beings as opposed to working our way out of swamp puddles. When we look at the complexity of the human body, it's amazing. Everything fits so perfectly together. All the chemistry, there's hundreds of thousands of chemical reactions going on in the body that are all precisely tuned, and they're all working together. And then you've got the nervous system that's connecting all the dots, and then you got the muscles, and then you got the brain that connects it, and then we run off of some stuff called food, and it managed to feed this whole entire beautiful machine that's we have. So I would disagree with the big evolutionary slant on this, but hey, there's a lot of good other information here, so that's why we'll keep going.
Produced by a flashlight and sunlight. Sunlight is an enormous broad spectrum. And that flashlight is just a little window of light that happens also to be present in sunlight. Now, I think the two situations are probably incomparable, right? And I'm not going to spend whatever is left of my career hunting that down. We know, and I think this is the global concept I've got, which is that we can do much with single wavelengths of long wavelength light, right? Like a flashlight, which is 850 or 670. We can do a lot, but we can never do the same as you can get from sunlight. But you can't do those tight controlled experiments with sunlight that I can do much more easily with specific wavelengths.
Yeah, and you're in the UK, so you'd have a lot of days where you don't do experiments at all. I'm just kidding. Well, I must say, you know, oftentimes when I tell people to get sunlight in their eyes in the morning to set their circadian rhythm, I'm like a repeating record with that, and I will be till the day I die. People will say, there's no sunlight where I live. And I remind them that even on a very overcast day, there's a lot of photon energy coming through, but the long wavelength light is cut off. So they're still getting a lot of photons. I mean, compare how bright it is at 9 a.m. Versus midnight the night before. Their sun, it said they can't see the outline of the sun as an object is what they're referring to.
I think the important point there is that long wavelength light gets scattered by water. It gets absorbed and scattered by water. So on a winter's day, we've got a cloud, and that cloud contains water. There will be an attenuation of the longer wavelength light. It won't be vast, but there will be an attenuation. But it will start coming at you in different angles. So when you're walking on a sunny day and you're walking down the road, the sun's in front of you, you feel warm on your chest when you've got clothes on. And that's the longer wavelength light doing it because it's relatively focused. On that winter's day, you're still getting a lot of long wavelength light, but it's coming at you in a lot of different angles and it's slightly attenuated. So my argument, which is the new mantra of the lab to some extent, is get a dog. Right? Get a dog because you'll have to go out in daylight 2 or 3 times a day.
You'll get no argument from me. You're making me very happy, Glenn. I love dogs. Listeners of this podcast will know I absolutely love dogs. And my last dog was an English bulldog, half Mastiff. So the next one will also be an English bulldog. Couple more questions because I know people are curious about long wavelength light emitting devices for their eyes and other tissues. You mentioned that one subject did not respond. And if I'm not mistaken, these effects, at least on the eyes, I don't know about the other effects on blood sugar, et cetera, but on the eyes and visual function seem to be gated by age, right? Yeah. If I recall, people younger than 40, so you saw less of an effect.
Overall, statistically, we saw less of an effect. But, some people, my youngest son responded very, very strongly. And at the time, I think he was about 25. So you have to look at a population level to get that. But okay, look, this all makes sense. Mitochondrial theory of aging means that if we should have more room to improve mitochondria in the elderly than the young. But we all age at different rates. And one of the biggest problems about doing experiments on humans as opposed to mice is we all do radically different things. Some take exercise, some have very good diets, some have poor diets. And mice sitting in our animal house eating the same food, they're very, very similar to one another. Everything's the same. So we have to accept that noise. But generally, when your mitochondria are in a poor state, which is consistent with aging, yes, we've got more room to lift them up and improve their function.
What was the time of day, so-called circadian effect of this?
Very clear. Again, same in flies, mice, and humans. Your biggest effect is always in the morning. And it's always generally just before perceived sunrise up until about 11 o'clock. So, and it's very, very clear. But let's look at the backdrop to this. Your mitochondria, they're not doing the same thing all the time. So if we did this experiment, 24 hours looking at mitochondria. And if you look at what mitochondria are doing over 24 hours, it's shifting. It's not the same even over a 3-hour period. It's shifting. And so the proteins that we have in different parts of mitochondria are changing in concentration radically. It's a very, very active area. So if you're doing research on mitochondria and you're not taking account of time of day, you may have a problem. So, but the mornings are very, very special. In the morning, there are lots of things changing in your body. Your hormone levels are very, very different. Your blood sugars tend to be picking up. You've been asleep. A predator may have been watching you. You need to wake up and you need to be ready on the road. You can't be like a lizard that's got to wait for the sun to rise and to get themselves into a position where you can get your body temperature up. So the morning is very important. You're making more ATP, this petrol that mitochondria make in the morning than at any other time. Now, I can improve function across a wide range of issues in the morning. I can't do it very easily in the afternoon.
Interesting.
And I think this comes from a very myopic point of view, which is we think about mitochondria as purely as things that make energy. They do lots of other things. And my interpretation is that in the afternoon, well, the standard lab joke is they're doing the ironing. They're doing other things that, as organelles, they need to do. Mm-hmm. They are, over a period of a day, they're making contact with other organelles in the cell, particularly something called the endoplasmic reticulum. They're junctioning with that. we've got such a limited view of what they do. I was surprised to find that a mitochondria at 9 o'clock in the morning was not a mitochondria at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. That poses some very serious problems about the interpretation of our data if people are doing things at different times of day.
So if somebody wants to improve their vision with long wavelength light exposure, maybe we can just give them a rough contour of what this would look like. Long wavelength of 670 and greater, emitting flashlight torch at a comfortable distance from the eye. So it could be, 3 inches, 6 inches, a foot, depending on how bright it is. But if I were going to run the experiment, I'd probably want to bring it about as close as people felt like they wanted to close their eyes, but then move it back just a little bit, just below the threshold of kind of, I don't want to say discomfort, but where it's just too bright. And then you're saying it doesn't matter if their eyelids are closed or open. You give it 3 minutes, 5 minutes of exposure once every 5 days or so. And is that going to be sufficient?
There is the difference between something that has an effect and then the efficiency of that effect. So if you take a 670 nanometer light source and you do exactly that, you will have an effect. Now, as we're going forward, we're finding the energy at which you give that wavelength is dropping and dropping and dropping and still effective.
So you don't need a very bright light.
No, you don't. So the original experiments, they used watts. They measured it in watts, not lux. Lux is not very meaningful to this situation because that's adjusted for the human eye. We want to know what was the energy that the cell experienced. So people started off at, say, 40 milliwatts per centimeter squared. And I looked at that and I thought, crikey.
That's bright.
That's bright.
That's very bright.
Big after effect.
Yeah, that's going to make someone wince.
It is. So then we got ourselves down to what we do in the lab now generally, which is around 8, which is very comfortable, has the same effect. But then we had someone in the lab do an experiment and we had the flashlights that had batteries in them. She got a lovely effect and we found out that the batteries had been run down. And she was getting an effect close at 1 milliwatt per centimeter squared. That is low.
That's dim red light.
That is low.
Okay, so sounds like one can use dim to moderately bright red light that's comfortable. I say red, but I mean long wavelength light that's comfortable and likely get the effect. Sounds like the effect can occur at any age, but it's going to be more pronounced in people that have experienced some loss of vision because of age, which everybody does.
Yes.
You've also looked at this in the context of macular degeneration, which is a very common form of blinding, and especially in people as they get older. What were the results in terms of rescuing vision in people with macular degeneration?
Okay, so macular degeneration is when, you could put it crudely, that the center of your retina that you're using for reading degenerates, and it's part of you could say it's part of an aging process. If I get you all to live to 50, so if I get you all to live to 100 years, probably 20% of you will have macular degeneration. Remember, the retina's a sports car, it burns out. So I had a very significant failure in a clinical trial because we took a whole group of patients who had macular degeneration. We treated them with red light, and we treated their more women have macular degeneration than men. We took their husbands as the control subjects. And to a first approximation, we got absolutely no effect whatsoever. This is kind of a point where, people working with Glen are losing enthusiasm. But lo and behold, their husbands, their vision, they didn't have macular degeneration, but their vision was improving enormously, particularly the way in which they could deal with darkness. So we stomped around over this. Something was wrong. And we found that when we looked back at it, we found that the subjects that we were dealing with, the patients, their disease had reached a certain point. It had gone beyond a certain point. Now, when that study was replicated by someone who thought about it a bit more than me, an ophthalmologist called Ben Burton in the UK, he got a great result. he started to get a really good result. And when you talk to people about red light, and I talk to Parkinson societies, I talk to various groups, and I talk to the researchers in it, there is one thing that's very clear, is that red light can impact on aging, it can impact on disease, but it can't do it if that disease has really got its teeth into you, right? So where we need to get into situations is early on in disease. So we thought very much about one point about rheumatism, rheumatoid arthritis.
Yeah, very common autoimmune condition.
Yeah. And we had absolutely zero effect, but all the subjects we dealt with already had hands that were quite twisted. It wasn't people coming in saying, I've got this ache in my hand, which is where we should have intervened. So early intervention is absolutely critical. We don't have to give high energies. We don't have to give long exposures. We can improve situations, but where we need to put our effort is the efficacy of how we improve things. If I can improve something 20%, well, that's great for that person. But can we improve it 80%? And that's all about wavelengths. It's all about energies. It's all about us thinking a little bit more carefully before we set up the experiment.
It also makes me think that even though long wavelength light can penetrate the body and it scatters, like for instance, the shining of light on a 4x6-inch rectangle on the back impact blood glucose regulation everywhere. Shining long wavelength light into the eyes improved presumably mitochondrial function in order to increase the visual detection ability, and on and on. Presumably, the tissue that you focus the light on, if it's a focused light, is going to derive the greatest benefit, right? Or at least the most opportunity for mitochondrial change. Then there will be these systemic effects. Those mitochondria are talking to other mitochondria. I mean, I'm fascinated by how mitochondria are perhaps transported between cells and around the body. It's not even a cottage industry anymore. I think a lot of biologists are thinking about this seriously. But let's say I want to improve the mitochondrial function in my gallbladder. Should I shine the red light on my gallbladder? It stands to reason that the answer would be yes.
I think the answer is yes. The issue is how quickly the effect takes place in distal and proximal tissues. So if you shine the light on your kneecap, something will probably happen within 1 to 2 hours.
At the kneecap.
At the kneecap.
Right.
But then if you're examining the response of that on your hand, it's 24 hours later. Right? So the message has to get out and the story has to spread. And the spreading of the story, that's an intense kind of area of activity. What is the signal? Where's it coming from? What is the signal? And I think we poked our finger at that slightly because we found that cytokine expression in the serum changed a lot.
Inflammatory cytokines are going down?
No. Increase in cytokine expression at low levels is protective.
Okay.
Right? So what it's saying to the body is brace yourself, something's coming.
Immune system is getting mobilized.
Yeah. So that was very, very clear. So in animals that had improvements in physiology also had changes in cytokine expression. I looked at that and I thought, is that the real reason? Or is this a secondary, third or fourth level effect? Now, there's some stunning stuff that I'm waiting to come out from Westminster University in the UK, being done by a great scientist, Iffy, there. And what she's showing is a means of communication that we are really rather unaware of, which is these microvesicles that go around the body, go around the serum. And these microvesicles carry cargoes. Now, they carry all different sorts of cargoes. And people have played with them a little bit in terms of changes in the gut microbiome. How does that affect the whole body? They've been talking about microvesicles. And she's shown that microvesicle concentration is changing quite significantly with, in fact, what we did with her was we didn't give her a red light. We gave her an LED light where we changed the LEDs in there to put some long wavelength elements in it. So the communication around the body, what is doing it? We've got to break that one. What is it? It's probably not one thing. Again, scientists always think about one thing. It's a complex pattern. When I looked at the changes in cytokine expression, my first reaction was, I need a mathematician sitting next to me. All these things are changing in a complex manner. And I'm only looking at 50 of them, and there's probably over 300. So I could be missing the point. But communication, and you're right, mitochondria, you can see cells come along to a sick cell and they join together, and the mitochondria is pushed in to the sick cell. How amazing. We'd have never thought about that. Your mitochondria are ill. I'm going to come along and I'm going to give you some fresh mitochondria.
It's amazing. The mitochondria are amazing, and it's amazing how little we really understand about how they work, and yet what we do understand points to how spectacularly important they are for energy, longevity, and as you pointed out, how malleable they are.
Yeah.
And it all makes sense in the evolutionary context of water and the absorption of red light. Another way that's kind of fun to illustrate this red light absorption by water thing is if anyone ever goes snorkeling on a tropical reef, you'll notice that in the first, 10 feet of water from the surface down, you can see beautiful oranges and reds, and then if you go deeper, those seem to disappear. They haven't disappeared. It's just that the red light isn't penetrating that far, right? It gets absorbed.
Yeah.
If you bring a flashlight down with you, as night divers do, or even day divers will do that sometimes in order to see those red fish are still there deeper, but it disappears to you. So it's very, very interesting. I'd like to talk a little bit about the other end of the wavelength spectrum, short wavelength light. And here I'd like to move to artificial lighting and point to what I think is a very serious concern. I know it might seem a little bit extreme, but I am very concerned about the fact that people are exposed to so much short wavelength, what's commonly referred to as blue light, but I don't think that really captures it, because people hear the words blue light and they think, oh, if a light source appears blue, then that might be messing with my melatonin at night and might be messing with my mitochondria even. But it's the white light coming from LED sources, which are basically what we use as lighting sources nowadays, that yes, they contain blue light, but they also contain violet light and stuff that doesn't appear blue because you've got the other wavelengths in there. In other words, white light coming from LEDs is very short wavelength enriched. To me, that's a problem if short wavelength light is causing dysfunction of mitochondria, and I do believe that's the case, unless it's balanced by the longer wavelengths. And at the same time, like anything, it can be remedied if we do the right thing. So could you illustrate for us what happened over the last 30 years or so in most every country as we moved from well, actually, let's take it further back. Let's go from candlelight and firelight to incandescent bulbs. Let's also talk about halogen bulbs and now LED bulbs. I know people like to focus on screens, but we'll set aside screens for the moment. Let's talk about indoor lighting, because I am very concerned about the amount of short wavelength light that people are exposed to nowadays, especially kids. Especially given what you told us about blood glucose regulation. What's known about this?
Okay, there's a group of us shuffling around corridors, all mumbling to one another, saying.
So I hope you've enjoyed this review of the podcast of Dr. Huberman. And as you heard towards the very end, as something that I was explaining in the beginning, they talk about get into more depth about the light is not even. So a normal light or an LED light bulb has that peak at 450 nanometer, and it goes way up and then down down on the curve. And the problem is that there's not much energy in the 700 to, let's say, 1,000 nanometer. And that comes in, as I showed you when I showed you my earlier product there, the Genesis. If a person is strictly looking at lighting, and this would be a good light, by the way, but a light for lighting, let's say, because it has the halogen light source, or a regular incandescent light source has that wavelengths in the 700 to 1,000 nanometer. at this, when it comes to treatment though, and trying to reduce inflammation or giving energy to the mitochondria, the palm light that we have with the 660 nanometer wavelength and the 810 can be used anywhere on the body. And then we have the larger mini canopy. And then we also have the helmet here. Okay, there you go. And it has the two wavelengths, the 660 nanometer and the 10, or the 660 nanometer and the 1050. So all our products have the wavelengths that are very, very useful when it comes to helping the mitochondria and increase the energy within the mitochondria, so the mitochondria can do a whole pile of great stuff that it's supposed to do. So tonight, because of our lateness of getting started and a couple little technical difficulties, I think we're going to call it quits tonight without getting into questions. But if you have a question, you can send the questions to info@sunpowerled.com. That's info@sunpowerled.com. And I really hope that tonight's webinar added a little bit to your learning. Again, I really don't agree with the fact that you can have an explosion in a junkyard and a 747 shows up. Our bodies are a million times more complicated than a 747. Nobody'd expect that to happen. That you'd get a bunch of random chances to come up with a 747, yet our bodies are millions of times more complicated. Probably millions is not enough. Probably have to add a few more zeros to it. So, and then we say, oh, it just happened by accident then. Think about it. But anyways, I want to thank you for coming on. And also, I want to mention that there's a 10% discount right now, Christmas 10. So if you put in the code, the coupon code Christmas 10, there's a 10% discount that we're running right now. So very good, very good. I hope you get a chance to be able to think of getting a light. And just remember, this is a beautiful gift, one of these guys, because it keeps on giving. And as you get older, it gives even more, because there's more aches and pains on the body for some reason as we get older. So, it's something that you could give to your parents who are struggling with arthritis pain or other types of pain, or you may be a lot younger. I've heard of people dealing with different types of arthritis being very young. And this is one way that you can significantly reduce the pain and also promote healing where there's possibilities of promoting healing. And the beautiful stuff we've seen with the eyes is in eye health is amazing. So I want to thank everyone for joining us. So today is the 16th. The 23rd will be our last webinar for the year, and then we will come back in January. Listen, I wish you all the best during this Christmas season, and I hope that you have a real blessed one, that God might richly bless your lives. And the other thing is, make sure you learn about the very creator of light himself. What's the reason for the season? The light of the world came into our space as a human, and that's told in the Christmas story. So do find out about the true meaning of Christmas, who developed light in the first place. I'm just using a little bit of it, and it's helped a lot of people. So thank you for everybody joining us, and we'll see you next week. And tell a lot of people. By the way, go to my website or to the YouTube channel and like. Also, we got it posted last week's video of the first part of the Huberman podcast is posted as well. So if you go to the YouTube channel, please like and share. Click that share button, and it'll really help this good message get out there. Thank you very much, and have a great week. Bye for now.